There really are just so many awesome microphones available today, and in fact, some of them are quite iconic. But the ethos behind this comparison is to see which on earth works for you. Because I am comparing two Earthworks microphones, two of their first microphones really geared towards YouTube streaming, podcasting, that kind of thing. This video is not sponsored, but Earthworks did send me these microphones, but you can tell it's not sponsored because the Icon, which is this one that I'm talking into right now, was sent to me over a year ago. And I'm only making this video now, so that's a pretty good sign that it's not a sponsored thing. And then the Ethos, which is this one right here, I've only had this one for about a month now, but the reason I wanted to compare this to the Icon was to see what the difference is between them, but also because the Ethos has had a significant price cut recently, going from like $700 or $800 all the way down to $400, which just happens to be the exact same price as the SM7B. So we're going to talk about all that, and of course we're going to be comparing them to the Blue Sona as well, but the main focus of this comparison is going to be between these two microphones right here, the Ethos on my right, your left, the Icon on my left, your right. Right? So now going over here to the Icon, both of these are XLR microphones, and they are condenser microphones, which is excellent because they will work with basically any interface as long as it has phantom power. So even though there are no boosters, this is true for any condenser microphone, not just these two. Pretty much any interface is going to be able to provide the gain that you need because the phantom power will take care of that. And the Sona solves that problem by having a built-in booster, even though it is a dynamic microphone, but condenser microphones always need phantom power in order to run. No boosters, nothing else. You'll get a great signal no matter what you're running them through. I'm running everything today through the Rodecaster Pro 2 with no effects and no processing. And the reason I'm using that is because I'll be comparing 4 microphones and it has 4 inputs. So math. And then over here on the Ethos, the reason I really wanted to compare these two microphones specifically was because I had been really unfamiliar with Earthworks up until about a year and a half ago, around the time that I got the Icon. And then I realized that the reason I didn't really know much about Earthworks was because historically they spend a lot of time in the like ultra premium space, where I did not spend a lot of time creating like measurement microphones and music microphones, just really high level professional microphones. And it wasn't until they started developing these lines here that it was kind of like, hey, here's more microphones that are more accessible to more people and still super high quality. So it was really fascinating to learn about the company. They're based in the United States. They make their microphones in the United States. The Icon and the Ethos are basically the exact same size, but as you can see, the difference being that the Ethos has sort of a traditional foam windscreen where the Icon has this metal windscreen, which does make it more plosive prone, as you can kind of hear. Peter Piper pitched a podcast. Peter Piper pitched a podcast. Really, really makes a difference with the windscreen. And so the Icon was the microphone that I've had for a while. I've used it a lot. You've seen it in videos. Sometimes I will even take the windscreen from the SM7B, pop it on here, and now I have Peter Piper pitched a podcast. Now it really kind of, works. In fact, what I can actually do, I will go over here to the Ethos. If I unscrew this metal windscreen, which is also, these are so just nice metal, like machined, everything is just insanely high quality on these microphones. I have another Ethos windscreen here, and now there is visually no way to tell these microphones apart. This is the Ethos, and this is the Icon. They are the exact same size, exact same dimension. The only way you can tell them apart is that on the back, they have their name written. As you probably noticed though, me going between them, there is a huge difference between the Icon, this microphone right here, and the Ethos, this microphone right here. They have very different tonal qualities, and I should be very, very clear up front. Oh, I should also say my gain level on the Rodecaster is 25 decibels for both of these. This comparison is not to say one is better than the other. They are just very, very different microphones, and in fact, if I go back here and unscrew this windscreen from the Icon again, maybe I'll need to go, we'll just use my overhead mic here. This is the Sennheiser MKH50, because then if I unscrew the windscreen from the Ethos, looking at the mics themselves, this one is the Ethos, this is the Icon. They're actually incredibly different, and without windscreens, let's go back here. So this is the Ethos without a windscreen. Peter Piper pitched a podcast, very plosive prone. And this is the Icon. Peter Piper pitched a podcast. So those windscreens are very important. Point being that these are very, very different microphones. Let me put these windscreens back on. The point of this comparison is not to say that one of these microphones is better than the other. They're very different microphones. And one of the things that I think is really neat about that is in my Blue Sona review, which I really like this microphone, I did a lot of comparisons to the SM7B. And it only makes sense even, especially with the Ethos now being priced the same as the SM7B, it only makes sense to compare those. However, the Sona is really trying to be a modern SM7B. That's clearly the ethos behind this microphone. I used to be an English teacher and would have to teach rhetorical strategies like ethos, pathos, logos. So the name of this microphone is very fun to me. Although ironically, there aren't a lot of logos on this ethos. But even though Earthworks is clearly trying to compete with the SM7B by slashing this microphone's price in half, it was originally $799, now it's $399. That is a huge discount in the world of audio gear. The Icon was released first, and the XLR version has a retail price of $499, but there is also a less expensive USB version. So if you want, you can actually get this microphone as a USB microphone, and then it just connects directly to your computer. The USB version of the Icon has an MSRP of $349. So clearly, they're trying to make it an alternative to the SM7B, but they're not trying to make it an SM7B. Earthworks is very clear that they are not trying to imitate anybody else. They're trying to make their own level of audio and set their own standards of audio quality. And these two microphones are just really, really different. So again, we've been listening to the Ethos for a while now. And then we'll go over here to the Icon, which has a totally different sound. And so throughout this video, what's going to be important is for you to think about, I guess, how my voice sounds in relation to your voice, because then you can kind of compare if we have a similar or dissimilar voice, you can sort of use that to gauge which microphone might be better. You can also think about your environment. This is a relatively well sound treated space at this point, so these condenser microphones work pretty well in here. I'll do some tests in a minute to compare them to the dynamic microphones and see how they reject noise. There are differences between these microphones, and I think one of the most important ones is that the Icon can be used a little bit further away. It's not a boom mic. It's not something you're going to want to position out of frame. Like, wow, I boomed this video with the Earthworks Icon. But it is a really great sounding microphone. It's earned a great reputation. You might even say that the Icon has become Miconic. I'm probably like a foot away from the microphone right now, and I hope I'm not putting my foot in my mouth by saying this, but it still sounds pretty decent even though it's not incredibly close to me. If I go over here to the Ethos, this is where it is similar to the SM7B, where the closer you get to it, if you're talking right next to this microphone, that's where you start to hear sort of the full, rich, awesome sound of the Ethos. So they're very different in terms of sensitivity, and that's why this comes with this big windscreen to handle those plosives. The fact that the Icon can be used from further away means that it's not as prone to plosives because it's not so close to you. If you get really close to it, the microphone still sounds great, but now those plosive problems happen and you might need to pop on a different windscreen or something, which I guess I forgot to show. If I just pull off the foam on here, this almost looks like a mini SM7B because it has a metal grate with the capsule down there. Very, very similar to how the SM7B and the Sona both have metal grates over their capsules, which I think those grates are great. So even though I do really want to focus specifically on these two microphones and the difference between them, because that was what my initial question was what is the difference between them? And listening to them, there is quite a big difference. Let's compare it to some of the other ones. Compare it. It's like a bird. Compare it. So this is the Earthworks Icon right here. This is the Icon. And if I stop talking, you can then even hear the noise floor on the Icon. There is an air conditioner running pretty quietly over there. This is now the Ethos. This is the Ethos, a very different sound. Again, no effects and no processing. And if I stop talking, here's the noise floor. And this is the SM7B with no effects and no processing. I do have my gain set to 55 decibels on the Rodecaster Pro 2 because it is a very quiet microphone, but this is what the SM7B sounds like. And this is the SM7B's noise floor at 55 decibels. I don't know what this means. It just means I'm aware time is passing quietly. And this is the blue Sona, ironically with an orange windscreen on it, running into the Rodecaster Pro 2. It does have phantom power turned on, so that way the booster, this mic only works with phantom power, just like these do. And this gain is set to 25 decibels. So these three microphones running off of phantom power are all set to 25 decibels. The SM7B was 55 to make it loud enough. As I mentioned in my review of the Sona, it really is a competitor to the SM7B, and not to just rehash that whole thing, but this is the Sona, this is the SM7B, this is the SM7B, and this is the Sona. You can hear that they're trying to be very, very similar. But now, if I go to the SM7B, here's the SM7B, and now this is the Ethos. This is what that microphone sounds like. Here is the Icon. In my mind, the Icon has more of a traditional condenser sound. It's a little like brighter and crisper. The Ethos is an interesting condenser microphone to me because it kind of has more of a dynamic sound. Now, one thing that did get brought up in my Sona review was I was really excited about this microphone as a modern SM7B that doesn't require a really nice interface or a booster in order to work. You're going to get great results. In fact, let's just go over here to the Sona. You're going to get great results with this microphone on any interface. That review shows that. The same is true what you're hearing from the Ethos and the Icon. These are going to sound like that through basically any interface. The SM7B is going to be different because you need a lot of clean gain to make it sound its best. The Sona also has an MSRP of $350, so it is less expensive than basically any of these. It's the cheapest microphone here. But in my review for the Sona, I had a number of people say, no, forget that, get the Ethos instead. That's the one to get. It's going to have a better pickup pattern. And this is where I think there are some important things just to keep in mind. Ultimately, first thing, it's whatever you like. Whichever microphone you like, that's the one to get, even if it's just like a $12 microphone from, I don't know, the pharmacy, like some place that sells really cheap stuff. Whatever, that's fine. But between these ones here that we're talking about today, whichever one you like best is going to be important. Whichever one you think sounds the best on your voice is going to be important. And whichever one works with your equipment and your environment is going to be important. If you're recording or filming in a less quiet space, there's people around, maybe you don't have a dedicated room, you're kind of like in the corner of a living room or a dining room or something, and there's just a lot of noise around you, that's going to be an important thing to keep in mind because the Sona has a super cardioid pickup pattern, which means as soon as I get off axis, it's going to start dropping my voice. It does mean I need to have better mic technique where I'm not moving away from it because then I'm going to lose that audio quality. The SM7B is a little bit more forgiving. I can move a little more away from the microphone without it changing too much as long as I'm pretty close to the microphone. And the Ethos is pretty similar. I can kind of get a little bit away from the microphone without it changing too much, but as soon as I get too far away, now we lose that quality. But if I move a little over to the side or something, I'm not going to really change the tone of my voice. And kind of same with the Icon, maybe even more so with the Icon because I can get much further away from it and still have it sound pretty much the same. There's not a huge proximity effect here. My voice does get louder if I'm closer, but it doesn't really change too much in terms of like the bass response. Like the SM7B where from over here, it's very just sort of not great sounding, but if I get close to the microphone, then you start to hear all of the parts of my voice. I think that the Sona's big strengths are not only that it works well with any interface, but that it's really good at rejecting sound because it's made to be used in less than ideal environments, or at least it's designed with that in mind. Condenser microphones, very generally speaking, tend to pick up a little more of your environmental tone. And just to prove that, across the hall from this room is the laundry room. So I'm going to go open the door and turn on our dryer. And then I will go through these microphones and you can kind of hear what that sounds like and how much it picks up in the background. Okay, so now I've got the dryer going and I'm on the Sona. If you kind of look over here, there's the dryer. It's just across the hallway. It's probably 10 feet away from me in here. So let's hear what that sounds like because that is a loud, rumbly thing in the background. This is the blue Sona. I will stop talking and you can hear how it's picking up noise from this room and the dryer and the hallway and everything. And now this is the Ethos. Same thing. This is what that sounds like. Here's the Icon with the dryer sounds, the dryer test. And the SM7B with the dryer test. Let's go between the SM7B, that's this one, and then the Sona over here. Even though these mics have similar pickup patterns and are dynamic, because I need to use so much less gain with the Sona, it's picking up that background noise far less. So this is the Sona, and this is the SM7B. I'll go back and forth. That's pretty crazy, actually. And then going back between the Earthworks microphones. So this was the big thing here, was people were telling me that the Ethos is going to reject noise the same way that the Sona will, but that is just simply not true. I love the Ethos. Wait, which microphone am I talking into? I love the Ethos, talking into the Sona, but it does not reject noise quite as much as the Sona does because it's a condenser microphone. Okay, so this is the Ethos. This is the Sona. I have to keep my buttons in mind. So here we go. Sona, this is what it sounds like. Now, hopefully you're not going to be recording with a dryer in the background, but at least this kind of gives you an idea if you live in a noisier environment, what that might sound like. And then let's do the Icon. Let's compare the Ethos and the Icon. So this is the Ethos, and this is the Icon. I really don't have to be. It's so crazy how much further away I can be from the Icon, and it still picks up my voice nice and clearly. So Icon, Ethos. I feel like these are pretty similar. The Icon might be picking up a little bit more, but I feel like they're pretty similar overall. Now, I do think that there is a pretty big distinction between the sounds of these two microphones, but it's only natural to look at things visually, especially if you're going to be using it in a visual medium. If you're doing an audio-only broadcast or podcast, maybe not as much of an issue, but if you're doing something that involves a camera, where it's going to be on camera, the visuals make sense. And Earthworks really designed stuff that looks visually just absolutely stunning. And even though these are pretty similar, let's take the visuals out of the equation by bringing in the highest quality piece of scientific equipment known to man, my custom designed microphone isolation chamber, my micsolation chamber here, and see which one is which one you think is which. I'm gonna turn off the dryer though. I'm going to start here on the Sona so that we can like clear the memory of these microphones out of our brains as I set this up. These are definitely not Christmas lights from the pharmacy. This is only going to be between the Ethos and the Icon, and we'll go back and forth, and then you can see which one you think is which. I will try to be as even as possible in terms of how far away I am from the microphone. They are running both at 25 decibels, both with no processing. The other microphones and their cables are all gone. So here is the Sona, and now we will go to mystery mic number 1. And here it is, mystery mic number 1. I am a fist's distance away from the microphone. Peter Piper pitched a podcast. This is mystery mic number 1. I should say that both of the Earthworks microphones do come with these super strong ball mounts that mount right to the middle of the microphone's body. So that way they are very evenly balanced on mic stands and boom arms and everything. This is microphone number 1, and this is microphone number 2. Peter Piper pitched a podcast. This is microphone number 2. Again, a distance away from my mouth as I'm talking. And like I was saying, both of these come with the same ball mounts that mount directly into the middle of the microphone's body, which means when you put it on a mic stand, it's very evenly balanced, kind of like the SM7B is right now. It's not like it doesn't have a little mount from back here and then the weight of the microphone gets weird. It's very easy to position them, and the ball mount that they come with is very, very, very strong, so it will hold the microphone in any position. It's a really, really cool, super flexible design. This is microphone number 2. This is now microphone number 1. We'll do one more switch back and forth, and then I will reveal which is which. So again, here's microphone 1. Let's listen to the noise floor. And I guess even how it picks up sound if I go away from the microphone. This is microphone number 1. And this is microphone number 2. Microphone number 2, here's the noise floor. And what it sounds like if I get further away from the microphone. This is microphone number 2. If you're wondering which is which, now's the moment of truth, so pause this if you need to like collect your thoughts or whatever, or leave a comment about which one you think is which. Microphone number 2 in this case is the Ethos. There is a pretty distinct sound between the Ethos and the Icon, but like I said earlier, I don't think one is better than the other. I think that they are just different, and it's all just personal preference. Since the Ethos was recently reduced in price to compete with the SM7B, I think it would only be appropriate to do another quick blind sound comparison with the SM7B and the Ethos, just so you can see what it sounds like between them. So, micsolation chamber. Throw another wild card into the mix. I'm on the Sona right now to kick off this mic comparison. So this is the Sona, and this is microphone number 1. This is mystery microphone number 1. This is either the SM7B or the Ethos, and this is mystery mic number 2. Mystery mic number 2. Oh, shoot. Which one is mystery mic number 2? So again, this is number 2. I don't think it sounds like number 2 at all. I think this sounds amazing. But I also think that this microphone, mystery mic number 1, also sounds amazing. So which one is which? Which one was 2? Which one is 1? Which one for you? Number 1 in this case is the SM7B. Yikes. I almost died. I'll just share my own personal opinion. If you're trying to decide between the SM7B and the ETHOS, and you like them both, but you don't know which one to get and they're the exact same price, generally speaking, I would personally prefer the ETHOS asterisk a little bit. The reason I say that for the average person is because this will work with any interface. Any XLR interface that has phantom power, you're going to get a great sound. You're not going to need anything else. You're going to have plenty of gain, plenty of volume. The SM7B is also a really nice microphone, but it's not going to work with every interface. If you have something like a Rodecaster Pro 2, if you already have cloud lifters and FET heads, if you already have like a DBX 286 or some kind of cool preamps and stuff, well, then the SM7B can, absolutely be an amazing microphone for you as well. But if you don't have any of those things, that's where one of the other options probably works better. What's interesting though is that typically a dynamic microphone like the SM7B will be better at rejecting background noise, right? Like the dryer or traffic or whatever it might be. However, since you need typically a lot of gain with it, if you're not using a booster, it might not reject quite as much as you would expect when compared to a condenser microphone like the ETHOS. But generally speaking, unless you already have the infrastructure for the SM7B, also the SM7B does have a couple of equalizer controls on the back, which for my tests have just been set to neutral. Neither of the Earthworks microphones have any of that, by the way. But all things being equal, especially for someone who might only have a simple basic interface, I would choose the ETHOS over the SM7B. The ETHOS versus the Sona is a bit of a different question because they do have very different sounds. I heard that really quickly right here. This is the Sona and this is the ETHOS. They both are really good sounding microphones. I think my personal preference, just personal preference, not right or wrong, is that I probably personally, with no EQ, do prefer the sound of the ETHOS to the Sona. It's just a really, really good sounding microphone. The Sona is definitely going to be a choice. It is $50 cheaper. It has a built-in booster. It does have that really super cardioid pickup pattern, which means it's going to do a much better job at rejecting off-axis sound. So it might depend a little bit on budget. You could save $50 with the Sona, but it also might depend not just on which sound you prefer, but also the environment you're going to be in. The Sona is probably a bit more forgiving if you're in a less than ideally sound-treated space. But the $1 million question, or in my case, the $1 question, that was stupid, is going to come down to the ICON versus the Sona. And again, it's all just personal preference. Neither one is right or wrong. The ICON is the one that I used first. It is the more expensive one at $499 instead of $399. This used to be more expensive. Now this one is pretty interesting. So the ICON is really the one to choose if you want to be further away from the microphone and you're probably in a better sound treated space, whereas the ETHOS over here is the one to choose if you want to be really close to the microphone, or maybe you're choosing between these and you're in a less than ideally sound treated space. The ICON has clearly a brighter tone. The ETHOS has sort of that warmer, full tone. And they're both really wonderful microphones, honestly. And speaking of things I liked all along, thank you to everyone who helps support my channel through Patreon and YouTube channel memberships. And over here on the ICON, if you do want to know a bit more about the blue Sona and the SM7B, check out my full in-depth Sona review right here.